I'm sorry to disappoint you, but nothing truly scandalous happened on the yacht after. We finished eating. Kate took me upstairs to where the master bedroom and a smaller bedroom were. The master was sternward, and the secondary was toward the bow. Like I said before, the master had its own private deck with a smaller hot tub on it. That's where things got a little interesting. Usually my jobs have tight schedules and a lot of discipline. This one, it turns out, had a little play in it too. A job like this could be dangerous. A less dedicated person might find a way to make excuses to make it last longer than it needed to, like, maybe, forever. Kate opened the door of the back of the master suite to the sun deck and said, "Kay, here, let's get some sunscreen on you."
Sunscreen? Oh, right, I've got some in my bag.
Keep yours, we'll use the stuff on the boat. Trust me, it's better.
Oh, okay. I was a little nervous because what if it had some sort of chemicals in it? I knew all about contact transference, anesthetics, poisons, stimulants. Chemists had come up all with sorts of nasty surprises.
Kate picked up a bottle from a cabinet and upended it so she could squirt some of the lotion into her palm. So much for it being a contact poison. Wait, she put it in her palm. Was she going to—
Turn around.
What?
Turn around and take off your shorts.
I gawked at her.
Trust me, Ness, I'm not like those people down there, and neither are you.
I nodded, swallowed, and turned around.
Shorts.
My hands fumbled with my shorts and finally found their way under the waistband. I pushed them over my hips and down my legs, then I stepped out of them. I heard Kate's soft sigh behind me. My bikini bottoms were a thong. It was a wide thong, but my ass was fully on display all the same.
That lounger over there, go lay down.
My heart sped up at the way the pitch of her voice had shifted. She liked what she saw. Since my boobs were nothing and she'd seen them all morning now, that meant she was an ass girl. I don't know why, but that excited me. I mean, sure, I've got a nice ass. I know. All the working out I do means it's very tight and has no fat, but it's still full and round from the squats and deadlifts and, well, I do a lot of back and lower body work. It's always nice to be appreciated, but with Kate, I think she wanted to show me the next level of appreciation. I saw the off-white lounger and walked over to it. I turned, saw the hunger in Kate's eyes as her eyes settled on my chest, and I blushed as I sat down. So much for her not being interested in my tits. Or maybe— shit, my nips had woken up and turned my bikini top into cones. I swiveled on the seat, rotating on my bare cheek, and rolled over to lay face down on the lounger. This let me hide my face from her so she couldn't see how red I was getting. And my tits. Thank God I could hide my traitorous nipples from her. Sure, they're not gross or stupid, but they definitely weren't playing by the same rules I was. To that end, lying belly down also allowed me to not see her, so I could try to examine myself and figure out how to get things back under control. First, though, I realized just how comfortable the lounger was. Even lying on my belly, it was amazing. It was like lying on a cloud. The surface was cool but not cold, even though it was in the Caribbean sun. It was soft but not clingy. It probably cost thousands of dollars, and maybe it was worth it. A shadow crossed my back, and then I felt Kate's hands on my shoulders. They were slick with the suntan lotion. I could smell the lotion too. There was vanilla and honey in it, or something that smelled like it. I hoped she wasn't rubbing honey on me. That would be sticky. And maybe tasty. Gah! No! Don't think about that. Jesus, what was wrong with me? Oh, sure, you're sitting there panting at the thought of it. I bet if you had to stand up right now, you'd be in trouble. Well, I was feeling that way too, but it was all sorts of messed up for me. I had a job to do, damn it. I was supposed to be eliminating a terrible predator, not moaning like a whore while the strong, sensual woman rubbed suntan lotion into my shoulders and arms like she was giving me an erotic massage.
Somebody's enjoying this.
I slurped up my drool before I tried to talk.
I've had worse.
She laughed.
Oh, you thought I meant you.
My eyes flew open. Wait, had I really closed them? Fuck, I had. Her hands disappeared for a moment and then touched me on my upper back. She applied the lotion in sensual gestures that made my muscles quiver and melt under her fingers. She was good, damn good. The only problem was how the strings of my top interrupted her movements.
I'm going to untie this so you can work on your tan lines.
I gasped but couldn't find the words to stop her before a gentle tug unraveled my swimsuit at the back of my neck. She repeated her performance with the string on my back while I was still reeling. She swept the strings away, and the lack of pressure from them made my skin tingle. Her hands were there a moment later, spreading the tingle and earning tiny little sighs that I couldn't seem to stifle.
I'm impressed.
She murmured as she worked on my back.
You're in perfect shape. You look smooth and healthy, but I can feel how strong you are. You must work out a lot.
Uh-huh.
She moved down my back.
You're perfect, Ness.
I swallowed to keep from whimpering at how amazing her fingers felt as they soothed the muscles that ran up and down my spine. Occasionally, she'd lighten her touch and it would tickle just enough to make me gasp, or when she slid her hands around to make sure my sides were coated in the silky, smooth lotion. She laughed when that happened, and it was warming me up in ways that I did my absolute best to make sure stayed ice cold when I was on a job. She shifted back, and I felt a light pressure on my lower thighs as she squatted down. She wasn't sitting on me exactly, but her very soft slacks were the only thing between her butt and my legs. Then her hands, freshly lubricated with lotion, were on my butt and began to rub. I shuddered and let out a groan.
Fuck, your ass is amazing.
I swallowed and fought the conflicting urges to sink through the reclining chair and through the deck or hike my hips up so she could really get her groove on. Oh God, if I did that, what would she do? Would she dig her thumbs and fingers in? Would they slide under my thong and between my cheeks? Would she touch me?
Jesus, Ness, have you ever seen those commercials where a woman cracks a walnut with her ass? I bet you could do that.
I whimpered, I think.
What? That's crazy.
So tight and firm and, okay, I'm impressed enough already. You must be the queen of squats at your college gym. You can relax.
Okay.
I bit my tongue as hard as I could without drawing blood. The pain took just enough of my focus away from my glutes to let me realize just how tight I'd made them. There was no way she was getting anything under my thong before. Now, though, oh fuck. Kate sighed as her hands slid over my cheeks. Her deliciously wicked thumbs crested the valley and dipped along my butt cleavage. Fuck me if she didn't use just enough pressure to slip under the edge of my thong as she worked up and down my crack. She came so close to touching me back there. You know, my anus, that I wasn't sure if she hadn't. The sensations rattled me to the core so much I wondered if she might have just triggered some sort of taboo, stress-related mini-orgasm in me. Except it didn't feel like a normal orgasm at all. But that didn't mean I wasn't wanting to feel it again. Just, to understand. For science. Whatever happened, my hips were fighting me and trying to convince me they should push up and back against her. So far, my mind was winning, but I was pretty sure it was a losing battle.
Up to you,
Kate said as she sat back more fully on my legs.
but I'd recommend you work on these tan lines too.
Instead of speaking, I hissed. I don't know what I was trying to say, but whatever it was, she seemed to understand it.
Hang on, let me finish you off.
I bit my tongue hard to keep from urging her to finish me. I bet she knew just how to do it too. Instead, she scooted lower and her hands were back with more sunscreen. She touched up the bottom swells of my butt and then worked on my thighs. Her fingers dipped in between my legs, coating my inner thighs so perfectly I only barely felt the lightest brush of the edge of her finger against the gusset of my thong once. Somehow I kept from crying out and thrashing on the lounger. No, I didn't come from that teasing touch, but I wouldn't be surprised if her finger came away dripping from the contact. I was out of my mind, and all the relaxation of her hands on my muscles was doing no good. At that point in my life, this had turned into the single most erotic moment I had ever experienced. Okay, so I said, nothing truly scandalous happened. That's true, from the perspective of anyone watching us. But the chemistry between us and the thought I was having was so far beyond scandalous, I can't even come up with a way to describe it. Her confident hands kept working on my legs, and as they moved away from my hot zones, I started to regain control. I wasn't any less turned on, but I was adapting and learning to compensate a bit. She did my calves next, and I think I started to fall for her right then and there. The way she touched my legs and coaxed my muscles into happy jelly made me think I was the most precious thing in the world to her. Then she did my feet. I didn't even try to stop the moans as her fingers dug into my arches and stretched and stroked my toes and instep. Her hands were magic. She was an angel. At that moment, all she had to do was ask, and I would have done anything for her. I don't think she realized it. How could she? I might have been sloppy and stupid, but I never said anything. Instead, she gave a gentle scratch to my calves and stood up.
Okay, stand up now.
Huh?
Stand up.
Oh, okay.
I forced the confusingly relaxed and overstimulated muscles back to work and stood up. I'm not kidding when I admit that I didn't even remember my top had been untied. I didn't realize it was still on the lounger as I stood up, probably because my boobs are too small to sag against my chest. Do girls with bigger boobs notice that? I stood up and moved beside her to look over the railing and down at the main deck. Kay, I wanted you to see that. Kate looked down at the small-scale orgy going on below us. Girls were naked in the hot tub doing things usually found only on the internet. The brothers were involved with girls on the couches and chairs. They were fucking and sucking and, well, it was a lot to take in, especially in my current frame of mind. Mr. Wall was sitting off to the side watching with a drink in one hand and a cigar in the other. He had his pants on, and other than the smile on his face, he didn't look like he felt the need to join in.
Whoa.
I could hear them moaning and swearing and laughing and crying out now. Or I realized I could hear them. We'd been hearing them all along, but it was a background noise that was only a little bit louder than the waves and the sound of the yacht's engines.
I wanted you to know you're absolutely safe with me.
Kate had slipped up next to me and was practically breathing her words into my ear. Kay, in case you want to work on the rest of your tan lines. I shuddered and turned to face her. She was there, right fucking there, inches from my face, so close I almost couldn't focus on her. My eyes went to her lips. They were so pink and just slightly parted. Kissable, so fucking kissable. I wondered what they tasted like. Kate's eyes widened and her lips parted further in a gasp. Then they trembled a little and she bit her bottom lip and jerked her gaze back up to mine.
Jesus, Vanessa, you're so fucking beautiful.
I sucked in a breath and looked down at myself. My tits were on display. My nipples. Yeah, they were the stars of the show, like always. Maybe more than usual even. They looked like they were so swollen they would burst. Kind of felt like it too now that I was aware of them.
Never mind.
I think I jumped a little.
What?
Leave your bottoms on, please.
Please.
She nodded.
You're going back to college in a few days. Wow, I can't believe I'm saying this. Doing this. I can't believe I'm doing it.
Doing what?
She handed me the bottle of lotion.
Put that on so you don't burn those amazing tits of yours. If I do it, I can't.
Okay. Fuck me if I wasn't disappointed too.
Ness, you're leaving in a couple of days. If I do anything with you, I'm going to be ruined when you leave.
What?
You're my idea of perfect. Her eyes darted to my nips before she went on. Better than perfect. I have such a thing for tits like yours. Small, sexy, and your nipples. Oh my God, I didn't even know what something like those could mean to me. They're like berries on thick little stems. Jesus, fuck.
I was blushing red all the way down to my belly button, I'm sure. She took in a deep breath and let it out.
Sunscreen now, then get in that tub and soak. If you need to get yourself off, please wait until you're in there and I can't see what your hands are doing.
I gasped and looked at the tub. Did I need to do that? Had she really just told me I could? I look back at her.
What are you?
I'm going to sit beside the tub and we're going to talk. You're going to tell me about school, about growing up, about what you want to do when you get out.
I am?
Uh-huh. I am not going to touch you again and I am definitely not going to kiss you.
Oh, okay.
She kept going like she was talking to herself and not me.
There is no way I would kiss you because if I did, I would totally fall for you.
Fuck.
What she didn't know was that I maybe was feeling like the same thing would happen to me. Except I still had a job to do. Double and triple fuck. I looked at the bottle of lotion and squirted some in my hand. Then I handed her the bottle, smeared it on both palms, and started rubbing my chest and belly and saved my boobs for last. I had to bite my tongue again as I touched my nips. Kate was watching me, and somehow that made me even more sensitive than normal. I knew if I spent too much time on them, I'd cream my bottoms. Cream them more, that is. My lips were already slipping and sliding against each other, and the wet fabric against them was starting to gather between them. Camel toe never felt so frustrating.
You should do the fronts of your legs.
I ignored her and turned and lifted one leg up and put it on top of the edge of the hot tub. I didn't pause exactly, but I moved carefully to keep from slipping, and, I admit, to share some of my frustration with Kate. I knew my ass was spread wide, and my thong was stretched tight and pulled a little off-center because of the way my leg was perched. I balanced on that foot and pulled myself up, and slid my other leg under, and then sat on the edge. I slid into the tub and turned around slowly to stare at Kate. She looked like she'd been punched in the gut, or maybe kicked. By a horse.
You okay?
She straightened, smiled, and said,
No.
No?
No.
She took a deep breath and let it out and then walked over and grabbed another lounger. She picked the back up and locked it into a seated position and sat down with only the edge of the tub between us. More importantly, her head was at the same level as mine, or maybe a little lower. She couldn't see into the water, which meant she couldn't see anything other than my head.
Okay, talk.
Talk? About what?
Anything. Everything. Tell me who Vanessa is. Tell me her fears and her hopes and her dreams. Give me a reason to think about you 20, 30, and 50 years from now, and wonder how you're doing, and if you ever accomplished what you wanted, and probably if you ever found someone to make you feel the way I hope they make you feel.
Oh, okay.
In spite of her request, I fell silent. I was horny, yes, so fucking horny. But the need to do something about it was fading fast. The water was warm, but because we were in the Caribbean, it wasn't hot. It was comfortable. Perfect, really, considering the sun and all. I think it was compassion. I liked Kate. I don't know why, but I did. Hell, for a little bit there, I could have seen myself and Kate together. Maybe not forever, but for a little while. In a different world, though. I had responsibilities. And honestly, we were kind of enemies, even if she didn't realize it. Fuck. I didn't want to be her enemy. I liked her. Yeah, like that. Sort of. Fuck.
Are you fucking yourself right now?
I jerked in the water.
What? No!
Then talk to me. We've got 60 to 90 minutes until we get back dock. If you're going to be the one that got away, I want it to be worth it.
I laughed and then stopped.
Sorry.
It was supposed to be funny.
It was. But it's kind of sad, too.
She shrugged.
Okay, you ready?
Give it to me.
I thought back to my cover story that Gail and I had created and nodded. I could do this. I had enough details that would check out, and beyond that I could fill in the blanks on the fly. No details there, just filler, that made sense.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Blake.
I began and let the background start to tumble out in scattered bits and pieces. Kate listened, asked questions, and oohed and awed at the right times. Before I knew it, she stood up and stared down at me in the water. I turned to face her, letting her see me with only the gently sloshing water distorting her view. She hesitated and then turned and walked over to my bag. She scooped it up and reached in to pull out my beach towel.
We'll be docking soon. You should get out and dry off.
She stretched her arms wide to spread out my beach towel. I licked my lips, swallowed, and stood up. My buds had lost a little of their thunder, but as soon as the wind teased them, I felt tingles that linked them straight to my puss. I reached for the towel, but she shook her head.
Get out first. I don't want you to slip.
I felt the warmth in my chest from her caring about me, and some in my cheeks from, well, discovering I was secretly an exhibitionist. I climbed up the built-in steps and then other the edge, turning as I did so and giving her another show of my butt. I backed down one step to the deck and felt her encompass me in my towel. She surprised me by wrapping it around me and basically hugging me against her in the process. The moment ended quickly, but it left me off balance. I turned around to face her, and she smiled at me.
Put your top back on too before we go down. Shorts too.
I couldn't believe the sudden pang of disappointment I felt. What was happening to me?
Oh, okay. Did they get dressed again too?
I don't know. Probably.
Probably. Then why are you so worried about me?
She stiffened and hesitated before she spilled her secret.
I don't want them seeing you like that.
You don't? Why not?
She gestured at me. Well, my body, really, but I didn't mind her objectifying me.
I want to keep you just for me.
I let out a heavy sigh and nodded. Then I dropped the towel and walked over to my bag. I bent over, at the hips because I was a tease, and reached into my bag and pulled out my phone.
Give me your number.
What? I can't. You can't.
I can. I'm going back to school, but you can bet your ass I have a reason to save up for another trip to Barbados. It's beautiful down here, and I don't just mean the scenery.
Now I had her blushing. She hesitated a moment longer, and then reached out.
I'll put it in.
I opened up my contacts and handed it to her. I watched as she added herself in and then handed it back.
Not yet.
I took a step back.
Go ahead. Take a picture.
What?
I'll send it to you.
She nodded and opened up my camera. I was disappointed to see her hands weren't trembling as she snapped a picture of me. Then she handed it back. I looked at it, blushed, and nodded.
Okay. I'll send that to you.
Now?
Later, I promise. I will, but I'm going to need a little time first.
I'm holding you to that.
You'll have to respond.
Her eyes widened, and then she smiled. Her cheeks were red again.
You send me that and I will.
I grinned.
Oh my God, I don't believe this. Okay, get a hold of yourself, Ness.
She laughed at me how I talked to myself in front of her.
Get dressed, tease.
I stuck my tongue out at her and scooped up my top from the lounger. I let her tie it, of course, and then stepped into my shorts and pulled them back up. My sandals were the last thing before I rolled up my damp towel and stuffed it back in my bag.
All set.
Just in time.
I looked off the back of the boat. There were other boats nearby, but nothing too close. More than there had been, though, which meant we were probably close to the marina.
We'll be docking again in a few minutes.
I felt the boat stop moving forward and start to move sideways. They were coming about to back into the dock already.
This has been one hell of a day.
I'll say. But it's not nearly over.
It's not.
No, Mr. Wall promised you some time with him, remember?
Oh, that's right. What's that mean?
It means, well, you're not an employee, right? He hasn't paid you to be here or do anything.
No, I was just walking to the beach and, well, you know.
She smirked.
I do. Okay, so it's up to you. He said you were smart and funny, but, we can be honest. I bet he's going to want to do more than debate politics or which psychologist is his favorite.
I winced.
Yeah, I kind of figured that. He seemed nice enough for an old guy, but oh my God.
Her forehead creased.
What?
You asked if I worked for him. Does that mean, do you have to do things for him? Those kinds of things?
Kate's worry lines relaxed and she let out a laugh.
You are so sweet. No, I don't. I won't say I haven't seen him make moves on some of his other employees, but with me he keeps it familiar, but professional. Probably because he knows I could kick his ass with both my feet behind my head.
My jaw fell open and then I couldn't stop my stupid mouth in time.
I'd like to see that.
Me kicking his ass?
No, the other thing.
She all but leered at me.
Is that right?
I shrugged.
Maybe.
You deliver on the picture and there's no telling what you might get back.
I bit my lip and nodded. The boat bumped against the dock, announcing that we had arrived. We turned and looked to see the marina off the stern of the yacht, complete with some of the crew scrambling to secure lines and make everything ready for us to leave.
So, is this it? You go your way and I go, to have some time with Mr. Wall?
She smiled at me.
You're not getting rid of me that easy.
I'm not?
Gee, were you hoping to?
No, I thought, I guess I am in way over my head here.
I'll be there, Ness, don't worry. Not like there, but I'll make sure everything is secure here and then head back to his house too. I'm his head of security after all.
Oh, I didn't. That's so cool. I honestly didn't think a man like him would have a woman in charge of something important like that.
Kate laughed.
Oh, Ness, you're wrong and you're so right.
I am.
He only hires women. Good-looking women too. He's my boss, so I won't say anything more than that. Although, if he needs a psych student on staff, I might be able to give a referral.
I gasped.
Stop that. I couldn't. I mean, my specialty is in social work, rehabilitation, and.
Kate was laughing hard enough to make me realize she was fucking with me. I glared at her, but I couldn't pretend to stay mad. Soon we were laughing together and then making our way back through the boat and down the stairs to the main deck. By the time we were on the aft deck with the gangway to the shore, Mr. Wall and the head stewardess were the only ones left. The brothers and all 6 of the entertainers were walking down the docks away from the boat. Mr. Wall saw us and beamed.
Ladies, I hope Kate treated you well, Vanessa.
I couldn't have asked for better company. This yacht is incredible. Today has been amazing.
His smile never faltered at the flattery.
I'm glad to hear that. Good job to you too, Kate. I'll have to remember to give you a bonus.
It was my pleasure, Mr. Wall. Getting to know Miss Blake has been a day well spent.
Good, good. Well then, we'll be off and you'll finish up here?
Of course, sir. The head stewardess caught Kate's eye, and I thought there might have been a hint of something there. Jealousy, maybe? Or longing?
Ness, I promised you some time, and I'm going to make good on that. Would you like to see my villa and have some dinner? I have a private chef who's already working up something she swears will be magical for you.
Oh, well, I'd be honored, Mr. Wall. I mean, I don't want to impose. You've given me so much already.
Nonsense. It's my pleasure to share what I've been blessed with, especially with someone as lovely as you.
All right then. I'm not really dressed for a fancy dinner, though.
Nonsense. It'll be a private affair. You don't need to worry. If you'd like, there are plenty of things you could change into there, too.
Okay, well, if you're sure, then yes, I'd like that very much.
He grinned and gestured for me to head across the gangway ahead of him. Kate winked at me and almost made me stumble. This was going to be complicated. Either I had to move quick or I had to extend the evening well into the night after everyone else had gone to sleep. That would mean doing some things I wasn't sure I was comfortable doing. Don't get me wrong, I knew how to seduce a man, and if I needed to, I would. I just preferred not to. Sex was something fun and exciting and maybe even meaningful and romantic. Or it could be. Shit. Yes, I glanced back at Kate as I had that thought. She'd really done a number on me. I shook my head to clear it and waited for Mr. Wall to catch up to me and lead me to his car. He smiled and made some small talk with me, all of it trying to impress me with his yacht, his car, and his wealth in general. I smiled, nodded, laughed, and played along. All the while I was stewing over Kate, not the important parts either. No, I was wondering what it would be like to kiss her. She wasn't soft, like some of the girls I'd kissed in the past. Yes, I said, I've done that before. It shouldn't be a surprise. It wasn't anything real, and it never led to anything. Just a spur-of-the-moment opportunity at a bar, or maybe something to get some guys interested. Whatever. It wasn't important. Kissing Kate, though, that might be. What else would happen, though? I'm not dumb. I know women have a lot of options for having sex. Fingers, mouths, toys, thighs, or even rubbing the slip-and-slide parts together directly. There was probably a lot more, too, that I didn't even know about. But would it be enough? I mean, I really liked dicks. They're just the right amounts of hard and still a little soft. You can get that in a dildo, but it doesn't feel the same. It doesn't throb. It doesn't feel hot to the touch. It doesn't... Jesus, I can't believe I'm admitting this. It doesn't explode and make sticky, sloppy, wonderful mess. In me or on me or... Christ. Now I was getting turned on again. Not that it took much after the day I had. The Lambo slowed down, braking hard to prove he could do it and we wouldn't die. I squealed like he expected, and then let out a yelp as he turned hard into a driveway and stopped before a metal gate. We'd arrived at Casa de Wall. A guard, an attractive woman in a lightweight uniform that enhanced her fake tits more than protected them, smiled at Mr. Wall and pressed the button to open the gate. The 6-foot-high metal gate slid back and he chirped the tires and raced down the driveway to pull into an open garage. I turned and looked, confirming what my earlier reconnaissance and the photos Gail had gotten me said. The fence went around the property and this was the only entry or exit to it. No, it wasn't electrified, but there were other houses nearby, so climbing over it would likely be noticed by somebody. If not immediately, it would still show up on a security camera. The villa was largely made of the same coral limestone all the upper-end houses around here built out of. Hell to renovate, but they were pretty solid against the hurricanes that could sweep across the island in the summer months. The roof looked like stone tiles from a distance, but as he pulled up and stopped, I saw the underside of the tiles were metal. That seemed smart for fighting off heavy winds. We got out of the car and I kept my bag with me as he led me into the house. Almost immediately we were greeted by a beautiful Hispanic-looking woman wearing a variation of a maid uniform. It was almost tasteful. She would have been a beautiful young woman without it, but with it she looked like she should either be a hostess in a luxury restaurant or stepping up on a dance stage decorated with stripper poles. Okay, maybe she looked too nice to be a stripper, but there was still a lot of hormones racing through my blood.
Dinner will be ready in about an hour, Senor Wall. Can I get you anything until then?
He smiled at both of us.
No, I think I'll show Ness around. The view up top is amazing, especially this late.
Very good, Senor Wall.
The housekeeper actually curtsied after she said that. Who the fuck does that anymore? I almost laughed, but it was just so odd I managed to keep my shit together.
This place is beautiful.
I wasn't lying. It was impressive. Rich fuckers were good at that sort of thing. What I was really focusing on was cameras. We had a decent idea where the external ones were, but no intel on surveillance inside the house. So far, all I was seeing was smoke alarms, though. Was he that arrogant? Or maybe he wanted to make sure there wasn't any evidence of what happens inside his home.
Right this way.
He led me around a corner and down a short hall to an open spiral staircase. He had me go first, of course, and I made sure I put just enough extra sway in my hips to keep him interested. When I reached the top, I was impressed in spite of half knowing what to expect from the thick wooden beams that acted as braces across the high ceiling. Lamps meant to look like braziers hung from them along the walls, as well as a fan in the center of the room. The walls of the single upstairs room had more of the painted coral stone walls, but the fourth wall was almost entirely made up outwardly bowed glass, or maybe acrylic like an aquarium, and I was the fish. Whatever it was, but it was perfectly transparent and gave a beautiful view over some other houses closer to the shore of the ocean to the east. A large bed, king-sized at least, sat with the headboard against the eastern wall. A small couch, an ottoman, and a pair of symmetrical chairs made a sitting area a few paces away from the foot of the bed. There was a doorway in the stone wall that led to an upper deck with some seating, but I found myself staring out through the wall at the boats slowly making their way through the ocean. The setting sun dazzled me as it reflected on the ocean and made it impossible to tell if I could see the islands of St. Vincent or not. Mr. Wall moved beside me.
Beautiful, isn't it?
I turned to face him, my eyes wide and gleaming.
So pretty. This is amazing.
Earlier in the day, you can see St. Vincent on the horizon.
I thought about going there instead of here. I'm so glad I didn't.
Why not? It's quite pretty. Perhaps a little less tame, too.
I grinned at him.
Tame? I've had more adventure today than I've ever had in my entire life.
The day's not over either.
I know.
I started to reach for him. I stopped and pulled my hand back, blushing as I did.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to overstep.
He reached out to take my hand and pull it toward him.
You're not overstepping, my dear.
I bit my lip while smiling and then ran my fingers across his cheek. He had a 5 o'clock shadow growing in, and I felt the rasp of the short hairs on my fingers and palm. I wondered how rough those might be against other parts of my skin, and unexpectedly, a stray thought about smooth Kate's cheeks were made my blush even more.
How can I make your visit to Barbados something you'll never forget, Vanessa?
I grinned and slipped around him, using my hand to tickle his cheek and then chin as I circled him. I leaned in close.
I owe every good thing about this trip to you, and I know it. Don't worry, Mr. Wall. I plan to give you what you deserve.
I saw his ears twitch as he smiled knowingly. I slid my hand back and pulled it in around his neck before sliding my other arm in over his shoulder and locking the chokehold. He froze, panicking at the sudden restriction, and then began to struggle. I was 3 steps ahead of him, though. His struggling was useless because I was twisted at the waist and I leaned away from him, pulling him up my leg and over my hip. That left him off balance and with no leverage. His hands pulled at my arm and then tried to beat back at me. He was gasping and sputtering, which meant he was getting air, but the pressure was too tight for him to yell. He cursed and swore in between pants. He called me every name in the book he could think of. None of them broadened my vocabulary, though. He realized he was talking and breathing, sort of, and tried to laugh. In a drawling voice, he pointed out how stupid I was because I wasn't choking him. I couldn't help my smile. His strength was failing him, and he didn't even realize it. He could breathe enough to get by, but what he didn't realize was my arm was pinching off the blood flow from his carotid arteries. That meant no fresh oxygen to his brain. He swatted at me now without much effect, and his curses were grunts and slurred mumbles. A few more seconds of me holding him over my hip, and he stopped struggling and slumped against me. As dead weight, he was suddenly a lot harder to hold steady, but I shifted my stance and kept the pressure on for another 10 seconds before I relaxed and let him slide to the floor. I was breathing hard too at this point. Holding up 200 pounds of struggling human is no easy thing. Yeah, I was a strong woman. I'm even stronger now, but not like superhero strong or anything. Time mattered though, so I couldn't fuck around and find out what would happen if I waited to catch my breath. I went to the bed and yanked the heavier blanket off and grabbed the sheet underneath. This was my murder weapon. I grabbed Mr. Wall under the shoulders and dragged him over to just under the ceiling fan. Next, I twisted the sheet into a rope and tied a loop in the end of it. With that set, I fed the rest of the sheet through it, creating a slip knot. The loop sticking through the knot went over his head, and then I tugged it nice and snug around his neck. That by itself wouldn't kill him, but it didn't need to. I dragged one of the chairs over next and managed to pull Mr. Wall over and up so he was sitting up. Sort of. He was slumped against the chair, and that gave me what I needed. I grabbed the other end of the sheet and stepped onto the chair so I could tie it to the fixture that secured the fan to the beam above it. I tightened it as much as I could and then climbed back down and hunted around until I found the control to turn on the fan. It circled 3 times before the tension of the scarf between the blades was too much. I'd expected as much, even if I'd hoped it might have a little more power to it. There was no way around it, though. I had to put my back into it again. I hurried over and struggled with the Mr. Wall's body. It took a few minutes of maneuvering to get him up onto my shoulder and then allow me to climb up onto the chair again. I suppose it would have been quite a sight to see, me staggering under his weight and teetering back and forth. I fell off once and banged my lip on his head, driving it into my teeth so I tasted blood. I had to climb back up and finish the job too. I was red-faced, breathing hard, and seriously rethinking my choice of careers by the time the fan had taken all the slack out of the sheet-turned rope and had him legitimately hanging in the air below it. I tipped the chair over beneath him and made sure his feet couldn't reach it, not because I was worried about him getting away, but to make it look like a suicide. I checked him, trying to find a pulse in his wrist, and I thought either might have been a weak one, but I knew it wouldn't last long with his weight and how tight the sheet had gotten around his neck. The job was done, but now I was hoping for the bonus round. Gail had given me the floor plans she'd acquired from the Barbados file servers, and I knew where to go. The tricky part was not being seen. With my bag rigged across my body to keep it snug against me, I slipped down the staircase quietly, and seeing neither the chef nor her sexy assistant, I slipped through the main floor of the house to his office. The door was shut but unlocked, which was perfect. I slipped in and went to his desk. I knew he'd have a computer, but I wasn't sure what kind it would be. I expected a laptop, but no. He had a box sitting inside a cabinet of his desk and a monitor and keyboard on top of it. He was old-fashioned, which shouldn't have surprised me. Even better, he didn't bother with a password on his screensaver, and he'd already logged in. If I hadn't done my research and knew how arrogant he was, I'd have said it was too easy. A few clicks and one typed-in web address later, and I gave Gale remote access to his system. I paused to pull out my AirPods and stuck them back in my ears before whispering, "Dove, this is Songbird. Can you hear me singing?"
I've got you, Tweety. You had me worried.
Phase 1 complete. We're in the lightning round now.
Ooh, are you... Oh, shit, I see the connection. Yeah, baby, I'm in.
Then I'm out. See you soon.
Bye.
I slipped the AirPods back into their case and tucked them in my bag. I paused to take stock of myself and made sure I had everything with me still. Towel, clothes, sandals, AirPods. I was solid. I used my towel to brush off the keyboard and knew I had to use it again on the door when I left. Other than those two surfaces, I hadn't touched anything that someone could lift a print off of. Satisfied that I'd done my job, I slipped quietly out of the door to his office and then made my way to the door I'd coming through. I grabbed the latch with my bag between it and my fingers and opened it up and then slipped back out into the garage. I glanced at his Lamborghini and saw a Range Rover sitting in the garage, too. I hadn't paid attention to it earlier. Shame on me. The garage door was still open, so I walked out and then just kept going across the open lot in front of his garage toward the drive. That's when things got real. Headlights lit me up and dazzled my eyes through the gate. I froze and then glanced around, wondering if I had a chance in hell of finding a place to hide. No, I didn't. I was caught red-handed, or at least red-faced. The gate slid open, and the headlights came at me. They swerved to the side and stopped, leaving spots dancing in my vision. I could make out the vehicle, though. It was a tan Toyota SUV. A nice one at that. Kate rolled her window down.
What are you doing out here?
Her eyes widened as she spoke, and she rushed to ask more.
Oh my God, are you okay? Your face is so red.
I gulped and shook my head.
No.
I finished by letting out what I hoped sounded like a sob.
Fuck.
She jumped out and came around the door to pull me into a hug.
What happened, Ness?
I shook my head and then buried my face in her shoulder.
Ness, talk to me. Did something happen? Did he do something to you? Of course he did. Well, I guess I mean, did he do something you didn't want? Did he force himself on you?
I can't right now. Take me home?
I stammered and then looked at her with tears in my red eyes. The irritation to my eyes came from rubbing them on the collar of her shirt, not from any sense of shame or guilt for putting that son of a bitch on the merry-go-round to hell. She let out a strangled moan as she stared at me. She nodded, though.
Of course. I'll take care of you and then I'll come back and...
I shook my head.
Don't come back. He's a bad man.
She looked miserable and nodded.
I know, baby. It's just, he's my boss. He's not always bad, but... Fuck, I didn't see this coming. I'm so sorry. I should have told you to leave earlier. He's not usually... Fuck.
He said he was sorry. He just said he didn't know what came over him. He said I was just too hot.
Oh, Ness.
It's all bullshit, wasn't it? I'm not that sexy. Not that hot. No way someone would do that. Would they? I didn't lead him on, did I? I said no. I told him I didn't want to do that. But he said my hips and my butt. Oh, fuck, I can't do this.
It's okay.
Kate guided me around her car to the passenger side.
Just let me take you home and get you safe, okay? I let her put me in the passenger seat, and then I grabbed her hand and clung to her.
I don't want to let go.
She stared at me, her eyes shimmering with tears of rage and frustration. She reached out and stopped her fingers just shy of touching my puffy lip.
Did he hit you?
I nodded and stuck my lip out so she could see the gash on the inside of it from my teeth. It wasn't bleeding anymore, but I knew it had to look bad.
Motherfucker, Fuck! I'm not going to let this go, Ness. I'm going to make sure he pays for this.
Just get me out of here.
She fumed a moment longer and then nodded.
Yeah, okay, let's do that.
She shut my door and hurried around to climb in on the driver's side. She spun around in the driveway, tires squealing a little from the power she gave it, and then had to stop at the gate again. The guard opened it without checking since she'd seen her just come in. Besides, people leaving the house weren't the problem. At least not normally. Kate was quiet as she drove me, other than to check on me and to ask where I was staying. She reached over after a few minutes and took my hand in hers and squeezed it. She shook her head and I could see the muscles in her jaw working. She was seriously worked up and it warmed my heart to see how much she cared. I know a normal person would have probably felt bad about using her like that. Well, I might not be normal, but I did feel a little bad about it. She was collateral damage. She'd lost a job with apparently a nice paycheck if she could afford a car like the Toyota. Arguably, maybe she wasn't as good at her job as I thought she was. I'd fooled her several times today, after all. But damn did she look good doing it. And she knew the technical side of her job. She was just a bad judge of character. Or maybe I'm that good. I'm inclined to think that might have something to do with it, but I admit I might have some bias. She pulled into my parking lot a little aggressively and apologized at the abrupt stop. Then she was out and had my door open before I could do more than get my seatbelt off. She took my hand and helped me out even though I didn't need it. Then another hug, this one quick, and she was leading me to the door of the hostel I was staying in. She stopped before we reached it and turned me to face her.
Stay with me.
What?
This place isn't safe for you. Well, okay, it probably is, but I want you to stay with me. That way I can be sure you're safe. And, well, I feel terrible about what happened to you. Let me try to make it up. I'll take care of you until you leave, or longer if, you want to stay.
What?
Stay with me, Vanessa. Tonight, tomorrow. As long as you need to, or want to. Fuck. I hadn't considered this. It was tempting too, damn it.
Kate?
Yes?
Kiss me.
She parted her lips and leaned forward, only to stop before reaching me.
Your lip. I don't want to hurt you.
Kiss me. Show me it doesn't have to be rough, or hurt, or...
She growled and pulled me against her and kissed me. It was exciting and scary and taboo and all of the fun parts about kissing a girl, plus the fact that she and I had something between us. Some chemistry or something. I wanted more. She took away the pain from my lip and made me forget all about the chaos spinning around me from the job and my feelings. I existed in the middle of that storm of pleasure, and I wanted to lose myself in it. She ended it too soon. A year and a day would have been too soon, though, so I can't blame her. She stared at my lips and then lifted her eyes to mine.
I think you're still bleeding. I can taste it.
Want me to bite your lip so we can be blood sisters?
She barked out a laugh and shook her head.
How can you make me laugh after all that's happened? God, Ness, you're...
I'm going inside and I'm going to bed, by myself.
She pouted.
Are you sure? What about... Do you need to get to a hospital? Or maybe do you need some medication?
He didn't put anything in me.
Her eyes widened and I let her horrified mind go wherever it wanted.
I'll be okay. Sore, maybe. But okay.
I'm coming back tomorrow. I'll get this sorted out tonight and then I'll be back to make damn sure everything is right with you.
I smiled, sniffed, and nodded.
God, you're so... perfect.
You're not so bad yourself. I still owe you that picture, too.
Oh, God, not now. Maybe... No, don't you worry about that. Let's get you in a good place first, okay?
Okay?
She sighed, not willing to let me go yet.
Can I get another kiss? A quick one? Then I'll go. I don't want to, but I will.
Yes, a quick one. Otherwise...
I know, I won't be able to stop either.
I blushed and nodded. She grabbed me again and we kissed. The first time was a lot more intense and exciting, but fuck me if the second kiss didn't have a lot of that same spark and thrill. I'd never felt that kissing anyone up till that point, and to be totally honest, it took me many years until I found someone who helped me feel it again. Kate stepped back, licked her lips, and then with a last longing glance at me, turned and went back to her cruiser. I watched her go and then went into the hostel and waited a few minutes. I dug out my AirPods, snugged them back into my ears, and then made my way back out of the hostel.
Songbirds coming back to the nest.
Gail grunted. She was still busy doing something, apparently.
You clear?
Yeah, I'm clear.
All right, I'll start packing by the time you're here. I've got a boat on standby.
A boat?
Can't get a flight this late without it being a private charter, and that's going to be too visible.
All right, a boat it is.
You sound weird, you okay?
I sighed. I couldn't tell her just how tempted I'd been, how soft Kate's lips were, how her tongue... Fuck. I had to stop.
Yeah, I hate these jobs where we can't have a schedule. I'm a planner, you know.
Preaching to the choir.
See you at the pulpit in a few. She grunted again, and I started walking.
Connor stared at his wife. He had a new fork, and he'd managed to eat most of his meal. But what was left was cold by now.
Well?
I don't know. You and Kate, you said it took you years to kiss someone like that again?
You dummy. You're the only one I've ever kissed that made me feel the same way.
Oh, well, that's good.
Sarah laughed.
Don't worry, baby. You're my ride or die. Or ride and die, since there won't be anyone else.
Hey, don't talk like that. If I ever do die, you have my permission to go find Kate and live out the rest of your life with her.
Sarah laughed and shook her head.
You're terrible.
Maybe a little. Did you ever send her that picture?
Sarah bit her lip and nodded.
I did. A couple weeks later, from a burner phone. Then I destroyed the phone. I couldn't bring myself to hear from her. I wanted to remember her exactly as she was. Beautiful, caring, confident. I didn't want to know what my betrayal did to her.
Connor winced.
I get it. Might be it wouldn't matter, though. I mean, the guy was trash and she knew it, right?
Yeah, she did. I think she knew things about him I didn't, even. But, oh well, I did what I had to, and here we are, living my best life.
I'll drink to that.
They clinked glasses and sipped at their drinks.
Speaking of pictures,
Sarah laughed.
Yes, baby, I'll send you dirty pics if you like.
ooh, I do like. But I was wondering about the cameras at his house, or was that what Gail was doing when you got her into his computer?
That was part of it. The rest was finding and taking control of his bank accounts. She made sure that his money was dispersed to the victims he'd stolen it from, with a little bonus thrown in for his workers to help them until they found another job.
You guys didn't keep any for yourselves?
We already got paid for the job. Taking more wouldn't have seemed right. Not when other people needed it.
Wow. So you're kind of a modern-day Robin Hood.
Sarah grinned at him.
Maybe. All this talk about Kate has kind of stirred up some old feelings. Old and new, actually. What do you say we get out of here? Unless you weren't turned on by all that talk about me being naked in front of her and then kissing Kate and...
Connor waved his hand at their waitress.